Serious, what's your best story about listening to a gut feeling? TL. Doctor, patient came in with gas pain, ended up in ICU for over a month. Listened to my gut, and luckily the patient lived. I'm a nurse and there are a lot of gut feelings kind of stuff, but northeast that sticks out is this one lady. She was a readmit from 3 days ago. Had laparoscopic surgery, red flag. I get report and I ask about her labs, specifically lactate and procalcitonin, which can indicate sepsis. They never drew one. Okay. Weird. Anyways, they say that she is back BC of uncontrolled pain. The doctor came in and told them that is residual gas pain from the surgery. I get her to the floor and she is in a lot of pain. I'll listen to her stomach for any signs of movement, bowels should be moving, and I hear nothing, red flag. I look at her stomach and see some redness around her surgical site, red flag. I mark the boundaries with marker. The doctor comes in and looks at her stomach and says that it is gas pain from surgery. He puts in some orders and leaves without even looking my way. Few hours later, 5 AM, I noticed that she hasn't urinated, red flag. I ask if she has peed at all and she said no and that she will try. The tech gets her up to the commode and nothing. Then she starts tanking. Blood pressure in the 70s. I call rapid response. I try to tell her everything that points out sepsis to me. She physically turns away from me to talk on the phone to the doctor. I ask her for labs and she ignores me. She got an order for a bolus of fluids saying that the patient is just dry and needs fluids. The fluids run through and she rapid response leaves, saying the BP is better. It is in the 80s now. I come back into a check and her BP is now in the 60s. I call rapid again and luckily I get a different nurse. First one was at the end of her shift, so she left. She comes in and asks me what is going on. I tell her everything I had noticed and she says that since the BP is unable to be stabilized, the patient will be transferred to ICU. I demand that labs need to be drawn. She agrees and the patient is transferred. The patient was septic. She was the most sick patient in the ICU for 4 weeks. The redness I had marked turned into full-blown blisters that covered her entire stomach. Her labs came back. Lactate was over 10, less than 1 is normal, and procalcitonin was 34. I can't remember off the top of my head. The patient lived. Always listen to your gut. In high school, my GF had me come to her youth group and her youth pastor, who was also a music teacher at our HS who was adored by the community, really didn't sit well with me. I saw him go from 100% praise singing to turning her out to his wife and muttering something awful to her with the worst glare I'd ever seen. Only she and I were in his line of sight. Then go right back to fake smile singing. I told her he seemed really fake and there was a dark side to him. Turns out he was really into Kid EPR0N and even started buying alcohol for his pupils and inviting them to his house. The church knew, covered it up, and he eventually got arrested for misconduct with a minor, did a quick jail stint, and moved out of state. I know a very successful high school choir director / church music minister who gives me that exact same vibe. I once saw him angrily call a kid an idiot to his face. I don't think he knew I was nearby. I'm positive he's as dark as he seems, but I don't know in what way. I told this story in the last gut feeling thread, but it's worth reposting. I was a birthday party princess in college. Dress up as a Disney character, sing some songs, help with cake, paint faces, typical party stuff. I get called to a party that began at 8 PM. Unusual but not unheard of in our industry. A lot of Spanish speaking families party well into the night. But I pull up down the street, princesses don't drive, and begin walking to the house, dressed as Sleeping Beauty, my party box of supplies in hand. But when I saw the house I knew immediately something was wrong. There were no lights on, no cars, no balloons. But against my better judgment I knocked on the door. This super creepy looking guy in his mid-50s answers, in a dirty shirt and jeans, and the first thing he says is the party's around back. I took one look at this guy and booked it as fast as I could while holding a box, wearing a ball gown, and being mildly crippled to begin with. I got into my car, locked the doors, floored it to a 7 to 11, and called my boss. The party never called demanding to know where their princess was. No one asked for their deposit back. My boss called police non-emergency, but I don't know if anything was ever done. I'm 100% sure there was no party in that house. It happened in the worst way. I was working with a patient whose cancer was in full remission. She looked amazing and was telling me about the trips she and her husband was planning. Paris, Africa, etc. All the places she couldn't go to because of kids, military, and now cancer. But now, with nothing holding her back, she was going to take the world by storm. It hit me, and it hit me hard. As we were setting up her follow-up appointments, she asked me if I was okay. I said gas and she laughed me off. 1 week later she died in the hospital. Her cancer returned, and in record time destroyed her to the point that she was bleeding out internally. They were going through so many bags of blood that the commander of the hospital told them to stop. I will never forget the look on her face as she dreamt of the future that I knew would never happen, and the feeling it gave me. I'm so sorry. I had a client that did something similar. She had been our customer for as long as I can remember. Beat cancer, made it through, and was going to finally live her life. It was breast cancer, and she had everything removed. So she goes in a little bit later to have breast implants. Came in the Friday before her surgery, super excited. Tells us all about how she's going to enjoy her new girls over the summer. I'll never forget how happy she looked to have beaten this disease and be getting a new body. Her husband came in 2 weeks later to get his hair cut. When I asked him how she was enjoying her new bikini ready body, he just broke down and asked, "You didn't hear? X died." Turned out when they were wheeling her from surgery to post-op, someone wasn't doing their job and she aspirated on vomit from the anesthesia. My heart broke. I'll never forget how happy she was and how one careless nurse/doctor not watching her for a little bit snuffed out a bright light. Long story short, dad nearly kidnapped by fake customs officers when he was a young adult. My dad went to Madrid to stay with a friend. There was sudden change and they couldn't pick him up from the train station. He had to sleep rough in the station. After being mistaken for a prostitute twice, two customs officers showed up and started showing my dad their badges and telling him to go with them. Already unsure because they weren't in uniform, my dad followed them anyway. They were putting his stuff in the back of an unmarked car and beckoning him to get in, all the time reassuring him and showing their badges. When he saw a police officer walking down the side of the road, feeling that something was really wrong, he went up to the police officer and asked him to help get his stuff out of the car. The police officer went over to the two men, got the stuff out the car, and talked to them and got them to show him their papers. Turns out they were fakes, and the officer took dad back to the police station after arresting the two men and allowed him to stay the night there. Dad got back with his friend and we all lived happily ever after. In high school, around everybody's birthday, all their friends would go all out, bringing balloons, brownies, gifts, you name it. It was just a fun tradition the whole school partook in to help with stress and whatnot. Fast forward to my birthday, and as per usual I was given balloons, cake, funny letters from my good friends. All of a sudden I felt like someone was watching me, and I turn around to see a girl in our class staring at me. I walk over and just start a conversation with her, asking her when her own birthday was, and made a mental note. I had such a strange gut feeling that I needed to do something for her on her birthday. Even though this was our first time talking, I knew this girl was very shy, a little strange, and had recently been given a lot of crap for coming out to a few people at our school, so I figured her birthday might not be as recognized or participated in as maybe mine was. Fast forward to her own birthday, and I brought her the biggest balloon I could find and some baked goods. As classes went on, I soon realized that was the only thing anyone got her that day. I caught her in the parking lot to say happy birthday one last time before heading to practice, and she seemed happy and normal. Fast forward to about 4 months later, I got chatting to her again. She pulled me aside and told me that for the last year or so she had been planning to kill herself on her birthday. I was in shock. She told me that the balloon and goodies showed her enough of a brighter side to life to hold off and rethink things, since a stranger seemed to care enough about a special day for her. I still can't believe it. TLDR, a balloon saved a girl's life. Made a throwaway account for obvious reasons. Matched with a guy on Tinder, met up with him, seemed cool, but I couldn't get rid of this feeling. Hung out for a weekend, drank, went out, and right before I left his place I found kiddie pronoun. I noped the duck out of there and called the cops. So my friend and I were walking around at like 2 o'clock in the morning playing Pokemon Go when it had first came out. It was very quiet and we were just talking to each other when all of a sudden a very loud truck came down the road and drove past us. Then all of a sudden I just got this feeling in my gut that told me to run. I told my friend what I was feeling and he immediately told me to run. So we ran behind a gas station parking lot and hid behind a dumpster for a second. And sure enough that same truck had turned around at the light and came back to the parking lot and even went behind the store in their truck looking for us. They were in and out, but it was still one of the most chilling feelings I've had before.